Hey guys, it's Crystal and I got a camera comparison for you today between the S9 Plus and the iPhone X. And as always, before we get into it, let's see what we're working with here. So it's not too different in terms of camera specs. They both have two 12 megapixel cameras on the back with that second telephoto lens, aperture of 2.4 on both telephoto lenses. Where the difference comes is with the main camera on the S9 Plus, it has that variable aperture going on that I'm sure you guys have heard all about by now. And I'm sure you guys seen all the videos where that lens actually opens up to let more light in, switching from an aperture of 2.4 to 1.5. Pretty cool stuff on the S9 Plus. And on the iPhone X, we have an aperture of 1.8 on its main lens on the back. Switching things to the front, to the selfie cameras, we have an 8 megapixel camera and an aperture of 1.7 on the S9 Plus, and a 7 megapixel camera with an aperture of 2.2 on the iPhone X. So it seems like we should expect more light in photos all around with the S9 Plus with those lower apertures. And when it comes to video, they both shoot 4K video up to 60 frames per second. They both do slow-mo, 1080p at 240 frames per second, but the S9 Plus has that super slow-mo feature now that does 720p video at 960 frames per second. And before we go take a look at the pictures and videos that I took, quick shout out to Dbrand for making my phones look so cool. I got the white marble skin on the iPhone X. I love this skin so much that I even put it on my MacBook. It is beautiful. And on the S9 Plus, I'm rocking their new black camo skin that literally matches like everything I have. It is so my style. So if you guys are interested in any Dbrand skins for your phones or devices, make sure you check out that link in the description below. And now, let's go take a look at some pictures. Let's start off with this nice colorful picture of a dream catcher. So this picture was taken kind of in the shadows, it's a little bit darker, but both look really good. I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me here is that the sky on the iPhone X is a bit overexposed. Colors are definitely more punchy looking on the iPhone X, and I think that's the first time that I've seen iPhone colors be more saturated looking than a Galaxy phone. But the colors on the S9 Plus still look really good. It's just slightly cooler. Everything seems better exposed on the S9 Plus. The subject, which is a dream catcher here, looks brighter, and the sky also looks better because it's not overexposed. So overall, I think I prefer the S9 Plus's picture here, but both look really good. And for this next picture, here I am sitting on a nice wooden chair on a lovely and cold Sunday afternoon. It's kind of the same thing with the sky. I immediately noticed it's slightly overexposed on the iPhone X. If we're talking colors here, I'm noticing that the iPhone's colors are slightly warmer and the S9's are definitely cooler in comparison. And again, also slightly more saturated on the iPhone X. We see that in the orange areas of the picture. I see some extra sharpness on the S9 Plus if I look at my coat and the wooden chair. Again, both do a really good job here. Let me know in the comments below which one you guys think did a better job. And now we're taking advantage of the telephoto lens on both phones and using some portrait mode and live focus pictures. And even though the iPhone X makes me orange a lot of the time, I kind of prefer the color here. Now in portrait mode and live focus, everything seems to look softer on the S9 Plus, but they both do a really good job at differentiating the background and the foreground. And I think as a whole picture, I prefer the iPhone X here. But some cool things to notice with the S9 Plus is when you go into live focus mode, of course, you can change the amount of blur after the picture was taken, and you could also switch between the wide angle camera and the portrait mode picture afterwards as well. Now this next picture almost looks identical to me, but again, a big thing is that color temperature difference. The iPhone X is definitely the phone with the warmer colors. For some reason, S9 pictures even here always seem a little bit softer to me. But let's move on to the next one. Not too much going on here, kind of a boring photo, but I wanted to get a better test at dynamic range and just see how it handled a nice wide shot like this. And the first thing I noticed again is in the sky, we got some overexposing going on the iPhone X again. The S9 Plus has that slightly darker image overall, and in this particular photo it is darker in the shadows, but I think overall the iPhone X's picture is just brighter everywhere. I will say at this point I'm still preferring the colors on the iPhone X, but I'm liking how everything is nicely exposed on the S9 Plus. And this next picture got this nice bucket of water that actually didn't have any water in it. We're definitely seeing more light coming through on the S9 Plus, which gets me really excited to get to low light photos because of that variable aperture. The main subject looks pretty good on both. It is slightly softer looking again on the S9 Plus. We see less detail, especially in that middle area. But overall, the S9 Plus picture is definitely the more balanced photo in terms of exposure. The iPhone has a brighter background, but it isn't a bad photo at all. And here is a beautiful little macro shot of this green little tree. So we get that nice bokeh in the background. Going really close up. Both do a really good job at keeping everything sharp and in focus. The S9 Plus does seem a tad bit sharper maybe. I think just like the last photo, not as extreme, but we definitely get more light in the shadows on the S9 Plus. Again, we see that warm versus cool going on with cooler colors on the S9 Plus. Both have a really nice depth of field, maybe slightly more on the iPhone 10. I want to see some more portrait mode and live focus pictures. And this reminds me of the other one that we looked at, where the skin tones are slightly warmer on the iPhone 10. But let's zoom in a little and just check the edges of my hair and see how it does there. The iPhone 10 has slightly more rugged edges, like you see some slight little mistakes there. And the S9 Plus overall, I think, does a better job at smoothing those edges. But also by zooming in, we can see my face is way softer on the S9 Plus. And here's another example where that airbrush look is definitely coming through on my face. Highlights are a little more blown out on the iPhone 10 and just more flat on the S9 Plus. I think when it comes to portrait and live focus, I am leaning towards the iPhone 10 more just because of the way the colors are handled. And I just wish I could kind of mix these portrait modes. Like I love how the S9 Plus does with the edges of things, but I love the way the colors and detail look on the iPhone 10. So if we could just like mix those, that would be great. How about this open for lunch sign? My eyes immediately just want to look at the S9 Plus's picture because the iPhone 10 sky is extremely overexposed here. I mean, we've been seeing that throughout the photos, but here it is definitely hurting the picture. And because of that overexposed sky on the iPhone 10, the tree is losing a lot of details in those branches. So I'm immediately noticing how nicely balanced the S9 Plus's picture is. But again, definitely less detail in the shadows on the iPhone 10. Zooming into that tree right there, we see a lot more and it's just brighter and looks great on the S9 Plus. Also the green of the leaves, we see that green coming through. In this picture, which of these stone lions looks better? I mean, zooming in, both are pretty sharp looking, and also the shadows are definitely coming through brighter, like just looking at the trash bin on the left of that lion. But I also took this picture into portrait mode and live focus again, and it's kind of the same thing as the last picture, but portrait mode is definitely meant for people and not objects like this, because you start to see those lot of mistakes around the lion head on the top there. But zooming out, both look great. And another thing to notice with the S9 and S9 Plus, its camera has a wider angle. That's why some photos might look slightly different, because I was standing in the exact same spot for both of them, but you just see more in the photo on the S9 Plus, and that's just due to that wider angle. And here we have some lovely fake flowers because it's winter and we're not seeing those real flowers come through for another couple months. Now this is a nice close-up shot and we get a good amount of detail in the subject on both. Everything is really nice and sharp and in focus. I'm gonna switch to that telephoto lens. Both photos looking great. We get so much detail in both. We do lose a bit of color on the S9 Plus. You start seeing everything looks slightly more washed out. Here's the first low light photo, and holy cow, you can already see that difference. You're getting so much more information in the shadows. Just look at the top and also the bottom by the snow. I mean, the iPhone X's picture still looks good, but it is cool to see that 1.5 aperture kicking through and letting all that light come in. And also we gotta remember that we can switch back to 2.4 in Pro mode if you really want the look of the iPhone X. Now here's a nice wide shot at nighttime. And just like daylight photos, the iPhone X really loves its highlights and likes to overexpose those. Zooming in, you can see that in the trees. But another thing that sticks out to me is the color difference. Colors are definitely more pleasing on the iPhone X, where on the S9 Plus, everything is looking kinda green looking. And here's a picture of Gabby texting away. And I think the biggest differences to me here is I see a lot more grain on the iPhone X's picture. And I think I'm realizing with all these low light pictures on the S9 Plus, the S9 definitely softens those images up to get rid of that grain. So if we zoom into Gabby's face here, you definitely see a lot more grain going on the iPhone X. On the S9, it's just soft looking, which I think helps it a lot in low light and overall gives it a crisper and sharper feel. In this next photo, I think that color difference is coming in way too strong on the S9 Plus, and it's just very yellow and green looking versus on the iPhone X where everything is slightly too pink. So there's no like middle ground here with those colors. But in terms of everything else in the photo, everything is kind of exposed the same, slightly brighter highlights on the iPhone X again. not too different here. And here we have the white deer sign. Almost seems like we have more light coming through on the iPhone's photo, but it also seems more washed out. But it's kind of the same with all the low light pictures. Zooming into things, you can see you get a lot more grain on the iPhone. Like, just look at the letters of the sign on the S9 Plus. It looks so smooth and sharp. Let's start moving to the selfie camera. Here's the first selfie of me and Gabby, and I immediately see S9 Plus looking definitely much softer, but also a little blurrier and also brighter. So it's giving us that brighter selfie, but it's definitely blurry. I took this picture a couple times and it just kind of kept giving us that hazy look. And the iPhone 10 is just sharper. The shadows are definitely darker, but I think it gives us a more pleasing looking selfie in this particular situation. Here's another selfie, and it kind of just reinforces what we've already seen with the other two selfies. We get a softer look on the S9. It just seems slightly blurred. Zooming in into my face. Don't know, again, if I really like the softer look, but it's up to you. What I do love about the S9 Plus more, again, is the wider angled selfie. I love that you can get more in the shot. And I took this same selfie with portrait mode and selfie focus, I think it's called, on the S9 Plus. I know a lot of people tend to have trouble with portrait mode on the iPhone 10 just because it blurs your ears. I don't really ever have that problem because my hair is usually covering my ears, so it just kind of blurs my hair there. But in terms of differentiating the background and the foreground, I mean, the iPhone 10 I've seen does a pretty good job with my hair all the time. It sometimes has those harsher lines, but looks like the S9 Plus does a pretty good job too, if not better. I mean, the edges again look softer just like on the rear camera, but I can't wait to see these S9 selfies against the Pixel 2 selfies because those are probably my favorite right now. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for S9 versus Pixel 2 camera comparison coming very soon. And here's a low light selfie. I mean, low light and selfie cameras usually don't do too well, and here clearly both are suffering, but you get so much more light on the S9 Plus. Is definitely the brighter picture. iPhone looking pretty dark and grainy, and both are pretty blurry. I mean, they're both lacking in detail, but at least you get the brighter picture on the S9 Plus. Taking a look at video at 4K at 30 frames per second, the biggest difference that I see here is a difference in colors. Colors are super vibrant on the S9 Plus. Like, just look at this building right here. It is bright orange compared to the iPhone 10. The S9 Plus looks like it was color graded, or like I added some type of filter over it, but this is how it is straight out of the camera. So comparing to the iPhone 10 gives you more true to life colors. Now, if we're just taking a look at exposure, the highlights and shadows, everything is pretty well balanced and evenly exposed in both videos. The highlights are slightly brighter on the S9 Plus. It also seems to expose everything faster. And in terms of stabilization, yes, both do have optical image stabilization, but things seem slightly smoother and more stable looking on the iPhone 10. And quickly taking a look at super slow-mo footage, even though I don't see myself using super slow-mo so much, it is pretty cool to have it on here. So if you're stuck between getting an S9 Plus or an iPhone 10 for its camera, hopefully this video helped you take a closer look and help you decide which smartphone camera is for you. Honestly, yeah, you can't go wrong with either. They're both great cameras, but there is some notable differences between the two. Like with the S9 Plus, it seems to give you more evenly exposed photos and also giving you a softer look to photos. And with the iPhone 10, we're always gonna get warmer colors with like slight more detail to photos. The S9 Plus does seem to pack a lot of features in its camera that the iPhone 10 doesn't have. Like, of course, we talked about variable aperture, but I didn't talk too much about its pro mode. You can really dive in and handle ISO, white balance, you can manually focus, and beyond that, the camera has a lot of cool hidden features that you may not know about. So if you want to see a full video just diving into the S9 Plus's camera, like diving into pro mode, let me know in the comments below. But also in the comments below, just let me know which camera did best in your opinion. Did you like the S9 Plus's pictures or the iPhone 10's? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned and subscribe for a Pixel 2 XL versus S9 Plus camera comparison coming very soon. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.